Flip-flopping favourites in North Shropshire is going to be one of the things that we talk about today on the polling station. It's Johnny Ward and the ever erudite William Kedjanyi, who's going to be ruminating over a very, very good week as well for Sir Keir Starmer, who's just gone ahead of Boris Johnson in terms of Prime Minister potential approval ratings in one poll. We're also going to talk about rebellion. What else are we going to talk about, William? What are we going to fit into the next 15 minutes here?
It's going to be jam-packed. It's going to be all action. It's going to be very much about the state of play between the two biggest parties in British politics, no disrespect to anybody else. That rebellion is quite important on a number of levels yesterday. And if you do go to our Twitter feed there, I did have some instant reaction, more on that later. And we will take a look at North Shropshire as well. Feel it's been quite well covered, but more on that space. So hopefully a lot in a bite-sized but jam-packed edition.
It's a fantastic, if you're into your by-elections, it's a fantastically close race, really, really close at the top of the market. And we do obviously recall that the Lib Dems were at least 3-1. We think maybe even 4-1 not that long ago when we spoke about potential.
We started five on them.
Obviously, a week's a long time. Politics, a month has been an especially long time for Boris Johnson, who's had a catastrophic month, really. But the Redfield and Wilton strategies poll. Now, this one is very, very interesting. The first ever lead for Starmer over Johnson. It's tight, 35% versus 34%. And the question was, at this moment, which of the pair would you think would be the better Prime Minister for the UK? But Sir Keir goes, he has a pretty happy Yuletide in store, you'd have to say, compared to where we were 6 months ago. Yeah,
absolutely. It's been completely transformed. Again, due to the incompetence, failures, inadmissibility of the government, I think in large part, but still you are definitely seeing a change in the view of Starmer as a potential Prime Minister, which is important. Generally speaking, they have been pretty good guides to election performance going forward, and a view, I think, in how people perceive the Labour Party too. Now, again, this is a big contrast. I think we need to treat these numbers with caution. They're soft at the moment, but the Starmer project is all about having somebody who looks serious and ready. And
well, it reminds me a bit of, you're too young to remember Tommy Cooper. You obviously have heard of the comedian, but Tommy Cooper would come out on stage and everyone would be in hysterics. And Tommy used to say to the guy beside him, I haven't even said anything yet. Keir Starmer doesn't even have needed to have done anything over the last 2 months for his poll ratings to go up because of what is facing Bojo at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, there's the issue, just sort of in the background, of how long does this last? Because Johnson, and we'll talk about this a bit later, we got some market movers, but he's now odds on not to make the next election as the Tory leader. And if you look at the betting, it's likelier that Starmer is facing one of Sunak or Truss. They're taking up the majority. I think either of those is a harder beat than Johnson for a variety of reasons. And Sunak would be, I think, quite hard for Starmer, for someone like Starmer to take on. But that said, even if the Tories get a new leader, I don't necessarily think this period will have done his long-term standing any harm, just in the sense of looking as if he's a sensible and competent person, at least on sort of the big picture stuff, compared to a person that many people have always regarded as unserious and not fit to lead the country. And that sort of framing is just great for Labour. And some might say inside the party, it's a flip around in 2019.
He said he did well with Mara last Sunday.
He did. He was good. He was forceful. The only thing, if I can critique him, is possibly that there's a bit of caution there. That there's a bit of hesitation still. Didn't say that Johnson was breaking the law last Christmas. I thought possibly that's something he might want to do. Also, I noticed, and again, I think this is really important. The Labour Party, very good at sort of weaponising the government's chaos against it and taking advantage of that, need to be calling for more individual policies. For example, sick pay. It is a huge and I think a gaping open hole for any politician to score a big victory on. You know, if we're so concerned about Omicron, why are we not increasing the rate of statutory sick pay? It's now, in my opinion, the most overlooked policy in the pandemic apart from ventilation and what's he done on that. Just little things like that, possible that he could do a bit better on. But I think he's definitely had better media performances recently. Again, they're open goals. And you'd say that he should be putting them away. But if he keeps doing it, then you could get to a point where most of the major pollsters are showing that the public prefers him as the potential prime minister, which is very different from 6 months ago. And by the way, we are, I believe, still 4-1 Starmer to be the next prime minister. People are asking why that's a big price, right? A lot of time until the next election, possible new Tory leader.
Possible new Tory leader. I think he'll be the leader of Labour going into the next election, in which case I don't think he's anywhere near a 4-1 shot. Definitely something to ruminate over at Christmas. Now, the whole pandemic, I mean, Boris is kind of, I don't know, kind of loose touch, laissez-faire attitude to the pandemic in March of 2020 seems about 1 million years ago. So much has changed since, including now a revolt from his own party in terms of his own sort of stance on COVID. This was a remarkable development as well.
Yeah, so to explain, yesterday, the Plan B public health measures were voted on. This was for England to bring England in line with what's happening in Northern Ireland, Scotland and Wales. There were 4 big areas that all received votes. One was mandatory face coverings. 2 was, I believe, 3 was the NHS vaccine COVID pass. 2, I believe, was mandating vaccines for NHS workers. And I want to say that 4 was something to do with self-isolation or testing. But the 2 big areas basically were about not face masks, but the COVID pass, aka a vaccine passport, and then mandating NHS workers to get the vaccine. Now, the government was expecting a big rebellion. We put up a market yesterday. We initially had lines of 70.5 and 80.5 rebels. I went and I called the office in Westminster to pull that back after seeing pretty substantial evidence that the rebellion was beginning to wane a bit and getting that chatter on the ground too. Only then to watch and see the vote and to see that 126 MPs had voted against, I believe it was the COVID pass measures, and 101, or anything from like 96 to 101 of them were Tory MPs, which is a staggering rebellion. Even at the top end, you know, we had about 82 on record in total, I think. At some point, and then there were rumours that those were going back. So it's a huge, huge rebellion. Biggest of Boris Johnson's premiership so far, more than his majority. It's about 20 more than his majority at the top end. And it's another big wedge between him and the parliamentary party. And the things don't look great on this front. They don't look great on this front. And it puts him in a difficult position. And it puts the government in a difficult position, not only relying on Labour votes also, but the potential that, because he promised yesterday he'd recall Parliament if measures got, or if measures were needed, harsh measures were needed, if things got worse. And the scientific data, unfortunately, is saying that things are very likely to get worse. So what happens when tougher measures are needed and he may have to take them to a vote? Because there are plenty of MPs who, at the moment, are not in line with what the science is saying, and then they are tired of these restrictions. They are very, very tired of measures or whatever, whether that's in the public health interest. I personally must declare an interest, don't think that it is in the public health interest to be so anti-mitigation measures, but they do, and there's a big core of them, and it seems to be from across the party.
I actually agree with them. I think Omicron isn't going to be anywhere near as bad as people think. I think cases will be high, but the actual severity of this particular variant won't be that bad. But unfortunately for Boris, he doesn't know this. The scientists themselves don't seem to know this. Personally, I can't really see any way out for him in 2022. I think he's on a road to nowhere in terms of leader of the party at the moment. But 2 other things we have to discuss: market moves and North Shropshire. There has been a small market move here. The Conservatives back into odds-on, slight favourites going into tomorrow's by-election.
Yeah, we've seen a lot of, you might call it correctional money. I think people thought 13 to 8 was just too big.
It went that big?
Yeah, and we took decent amounts of 13 to 8. then we took a bit more, 11 to 8. A course correction, I think, probably. The last internal polling I saw on Twitter, supposedly from inside Liberal Democrats, had it at 40% for the Conservatives and 39% for Liberal Democrats. That's posted only. Very, very close. Again, these numbers do need interpretation and some caution, but the Lib Dems are definitely throwing a lot on the ground, and they have been for quite a few weeks. And you've had all manner of big names there, and they have a local candidate who I think it's fair to say is better tuned into the area. So it's all setting up very well. Plus, also we've had just the last month of the government. But that said, Angela Rayner went up to see Ben Wood yesterday, suggesting Labour are throwing a lot at this as well. There's the potential for a big collision here.
Young man is 50 to 1, so is he going to split the non-Conservative vote here?
I think it is far more likely than is really being acknowledged. Maybe the market's only just acknowledging that now. Maybe that's behind the money we took earlier this week. But I absolutely do not think it's 1,000,000 to 1 that we get a repeat of what happened in Kensington in 2019, where two non-Tory parties cut each other's throats. And that would lead to, I think, a lot of consternation amongst Lib Dems and Labour supporters, depending upon who came second, which all the sources tell us will be the Lib Dems, but Labour are going for it, and they appear confident with their internal data, which again means somebody is very, very wrong.
Which is often us, actually. Any other market moves for us?
Yeah, a couple on the next election. We're beginning to see this feed in properly now. So we are 10 to 11 from evens for hung parliament at the next election. Majority is out to 13 to 8. That's for Tories. Labour are now 4 to 1 for a majority, from 9 to 2. That's the first cut I think we've seen in a few months for that. Just reflecting recently the polling, which has Labour within a stone's throw of a majority. Incredible how difficult it is for their vote to be distributed properly. But we're continuing to see more money on that, and also Johnson not to go. Johnson to go, I should say, before the next election. He's now a 4 to 6 shot not to make it as party leader. And not just that, he is 10 to 11 to leave next year.
We'll have one more polling station before Christmas, and we'll maybe talk a bit of France then, and we'll dissect the result of the by-election as well.
I would imagine so, yes, one more for Christmas, and I look very much forward to digging into what should be an absolutely fascinating contest.
I'm just very disappointed you're not in North Shropshire, but we'll have to make do with...
Well, just put a pin in that. I can't confirm anything yet, but just don't be sure just yet. My travelling may not be done.
Hashtag scenes. That was the polling station with Johnny Ward and William Kedjanyi. Whether you're on the Conservatives at a short price or the Lib Dems at a big price in North Shropshire, best of luck. We'll be back next week.